Number 10, checking notifications the moment they appear. You tell yourself it's just a reflex, that tiny vibration, that little red dot on your screen. But pause for a second. Why does your heart skip when your phone lights up? Why does silence feel unbearable until you check it? This isn't communication anymore. It's compulsion disguised as connection. Each ping feels like a reward, a hit of dopamine dressed as a harmless habit. And before you realize it, you've rewired your brain to chase tiny digital affirmations. People say obsession looks loud, like stalking or hoarding, but sometimes it's quiet. It looks like you, waiting for a reply that hasn't even been typed yet. It looks like scrolling through old chats just to feel that one moment again. Every notification becomes a lottery ticket of emotion. Maybe this one will change everything, but nothing really changes. You're just checking, again and again. Neurologically, this loop mimics addiction. Each alert triggers anticipation. Anticipation triggers reward circuits. And when the reward doesn't come, your brain itches for completion. It's not attention you're seeking. It's closure that never arrives. The same chemical system used to keep gamblers hooked is now keeping your thumb twitching toward the screen. And the irony? The more often you check, the less satisfaction you feel. It's the psychological slot machine effect. Partial reinforcement. Random rewards make behaviors impossible to extinguish. That's why, even when there are no messages, you still open the app, hoping for ghosts of validation. Try not checking once. Watch the discomfort crawl under your skin. That silence is withdrawal, not from people, but from the illusion of control. Because obsession isn't about love, or attention, or curiosity. It's about trying to command the unpredictable, to force certainty from chaos. And the moment you stop chasing it, you'll realize how much of your peace you traded for the sound of a single notification. Number 9. Rearranging items repeatedly for order. You say it's about tidiness, about keeping things just right. But that's the beautiful lie obsession tells. It dresses itself as discipline. You move one object an inch, then another, until the desk feels aligned. For a few seconds, your mind exhales. But then something feels slightly off again, almost invisible, like static behind your thoughts. And you reach out one more time to fix it. The ritual begins anew. It's not about the pen or the pillow or the glass on the counter. It's about calming a storm that never truly stops. When your outer world looks perfect, your inner world feels momentarily still. Psychologists call this compensatory control, when your environment becomes the puppet you manipulate to soothe an anxious mind. Because chaos outside mirrors chaos inside, and order becomes the illusion of safety. But the paradox is cruel. The more you perfect, the less peace you feel. Soon, you aren't organizing. You're negotiating with anxiety. The bookshelf becomes a battleground for your sense of control. You know it's irrational, but the thought of leaving that crooked frame untouched feels unbearable, like ignoring an alarm only you can hear. Over time, your brain links rearranging with relief. Each adjustment releases a drip of serotonin, a temporary calm that vanishes faster each time. The comfort window shrinks. The loop tightens. You start chasing stillness the way a gambler chases luck, never realizing both are running in circles. The scariest part? To everyone else, it looks productive. You're the organized one, the clean freak, the aesthetic perfectionist. But inside, it's not about beauty, it's about survival, a desperate attempt to hold reality steady through motion. True order isn't about things being in place, it's about you being okay when they aren't. The day you can walk away from a slightly tilted picture frame without fixing it, that's not neglect. That's freedom wearing imperfection like a crown. Number 8, rereading the same text or email multiple times. You tell yourself you're just double checking, making sure you didn't miss anything. But if you're honest, you already know every word, every comma, every sigh hidden between the lines. You're not reading anymore, you're dissecting, looking for subtext that might not even exist, searching for safety in syntax. Because somewhere deep down, you're not trying to understand the message. You're trying to control how it makes you feel. This habit seems harmless. After all, who hasn't reread a text before replying? But there's a fine line between reflection and rumination. The first builds clarity, the second builds cages. Psychologists call this cognitive looping, when the brain replays the same input, hoping repetition will unlock certainty. But it never does. Each reread is just another turn of the lock on your own anxiety. You might zoom in on a single phrase. Sure, that's fine. Did they mean fine, fine? Or fine, angry, fine? Why no emoji? Why the period at the end? Suddenly, a six-word text becomes a novel of imagined meanings. Your brain, wired for pattern recognition, starts fabricating emotional code where there is none. And because obsession thrives on ambiguity, the lack of clear tone feeds it more. You reread again, hoping the words will sound different this time. That hidden meaning will rise to the surface like ink in invisible light. But here's the paradox. The more you reread, the less real the message becomes. You aren't connecting with the person who sent it anymore. You're connecting with the voice of your own doubt. It's not communication, it's projection, looping in your own head. Break the loop once. Let the discomfort stand. Real connection requires uncertainty, that terrifying space where meaning isn't fully known. Because obsession isn't born from love of detail, it's born from fear of interpretation. The peace you seek isn't in the words, it's in learning to read once and trust what you felt the first time. Number 7, tracking routines with extreme precision. You call it discipline, progress, optimization. But underneath all that structure, the perfectly timed alarms, color-coded charts, the fitness tracker glowing on your wrist, there's a quiet panic whispering, if I stop tracking, I'll lose control. You don't just measure steps or calories anymore, you measure worth. Every unchecked box feels like a personal failure, every deviation like collapse. The tracker doesn't just record your life, it becomes the proof that you're still holding it together. At first, it feels empowering. You see patterns, improvement, mastery. But then, numbers start replacing feelings. You no longer ask, am I rested? You ask, did I sleep 8 hours? You no longer ask, am I happy? You ask, did I meet my productivity goal? The data becomes the deity, and you, the devoted priest performing rituals of consistency. Psychologists call this quantified obsession, the illusion that self-awareness equals self-control. The brain, craving predictability, finds comfort in numbers. They feel solid, measurable, obedient. But life isn't math. It's movement. And when your sense of peace depends on precision, the smallest disruption becomes unbearable. Miss one log entry and the anxiety spikes. Skip a day and you spiral. The habit meant to free you ends up owning you. The deeper danger is subtle. Tracking erases intuition. You forget how to feel hunger without a calorie counter, how to sense fatigue without a graph. You outsource awareness to devices that never sleep. The moment you start living by data instead of rhythm, your humanity quietly bends to algorithm. But balance doesn't mean throwing the tracker away. It means reclaiming the right to be imprecise, to eat without counting, to rest without reason, to live without recording it all. Because sometimes the most radical form of progress is letting a day go unmeasured and realizing the world didn't fall apart. That's not failure. That's recovery from perfection's oldest addiction, control. Number 6, thinking about one person constantly. They live in your mind rent-free, not in a romantic, dreamy way, but like a tenant who's taken over the whole house. You wake up with them in your thoughts, fall asleep to their imagined replies, and measure your mood by how they act, speak, or text. It feels like love, maybe even destiny, but it's not affection that keeps them there. It's fixation, an emotional feedback loop. Your mind mistakes for connection. At its core, obsession with a person isn't about them at all. It's about what your mind turns them into. An anchor in uncertainty, a symbol of validation, a projection of the parts of you you've exiled. When they smile, you feel whole. When they go silent, you feel erased. They become a mirror reflecting your self-worth back to you, and you forget how to see your reflection anywhere else. Psychologically, this is called limerence, an intoxicating cocktail of dopamine, adrenaline, and fantasy. The brain treats the person like a goal, a puzzle to solve, a reward to win. Every memory of them reactivates reward pathways the way addiction does. You replay moments, interpret silences, craft entire stories out of glances, because your brain, wired for pattern and closure, can't handle emotional ambiguity. The tragic part, the more you think about them, the less of them remains. You stop seeing who they really are and start seeing a projection sculpted from longing. Their flaws vanish. Their absences grow louder. You become both the painter and the prisoner of your own creation. Breaking that loop isn't about forgetting them. It's about reoccupying your own mental space. Notice how your thoughts orbit them. Then pull yourself back to the center. Obsession thrives in empty rooms. Fill yours again. Learn something new. Breathe differently. Because when your mind stops echoing their name, you'll hear your own again and realize that what you called love was really the sound of your own heart trying to be heard. Number 5. Obsessively fact-checking trivial details. You call it curiosity, you call it being well-informed, but deep down, you know it's not about learning, it's about control. You can't let a statement slide without Googling it. You can't rest until every loose thread is tied, Every uncertain fact is verified. Someone says a random date, and you're already halfway through a rabbit hole of citations and timestamps, chasing the peace that only absolute certainty seems to bring. But obsession hides beneath noble disguises. It wears the mask of intelligence, diligence, rationality. You tell yourself you're just thorough, that it's better to know than to assume. Yet, when you zoom in close enough, it's not knowledge you're chasing. It's relief from the discomfort of not knowing. That tiny tension in your chest when something feels uncertain, that's your mind's signal flare, demanding closure at any cost. Neuroscience has a name for it, the Zeigarnik effect. The brain's tendency to fixate on incomplete tasks or unanswered questions. Each unresolved detail creates mental noise, and you start believing the only way to quiet it is by confirming everything. But the more you check, the more your brain learns that uncertainty equals threat, and suddenly, not knowing becomes intolerable. The loop tightens. One fact leads to another. One search spawns 5, and by midnight, you're researching whether Napoleon had allergies. The cost isn't just time, it's mental exhaustion. Your focus fractures. Conversations turn into investigations. The world stops being mysterious and starts feeling like an exam with no end. You lose the ability to simply wonder, because wonder demands trust in the unknown, and obsession demands evidence. True intelligence isn't in knowing everything, it's in enduring what can't be known. The next time you feel that itch to verify something meaningless, try letting it stay unanswered. Let it hum quietly in your mind. That discomfort is not ignorance, it's humility. It's the courage to admit that not every mystery exists to be solved, and not every fact needs to be found. Number 4, keeping endless to-do lists. You never use you. Tell yourself you're planning, preparing, being responsible. But that list in your notes app, on your whiteboard, in your head, it's not a plan anymore. It's a museum of unfinished intentions. You write the same things down every day. Read more, start the project, fix your sleep, but you rarely touch them. Why? Because the list isn't about doing, it's about coping. It's a ritual that tricks your brain into believing progress has begun, even when nothing has moved an inch. There's a strange satisfaction in it, the crisp order of bullet points, the illusion of control in categories and subtasks. For a moment, it feels like clarity, like life is solvable. But behind that illusion hides a quiet panic, the fear of forgetting, failing, or falling behind. The list becomes a mental safety net, proof that you could change, if you ever felt ready. Psychologists call this productive procrastination. It's when you organize your ambitions instead of living them. Your brain still releases dopamine because writing a goal mimics the feeling of completing one. So, you keep writing and rewriting. You buy new notebooks, apps, planners. The ritual expands, but your reality stands still. Soon, the list stops being a guide and becomes a guilt trap. Every unchecked box whispers disappointment. Every rollover task feels heavier, and slowly, your self-esteem starts orbiting around imaginary achievements. You tell yourself you're lazy, unmotivated, when in truth you're just addicted to the feeling of potential. The paradox is cruel but simple. You don't need more lists. You need fewer hesitations. The goal of planning is movement, not perfection. Rip one page out, pick one line, just one. Let the rest stay undone, because progress doesn't live on paper, it lives in motion. And obsession? It often wears the costume of productivity, convincing you you're building momentum when you're only rearranging fear. When you can let a task remain unwritten, not because you forgot, but because you trust yourself to remember, that's when you'll know you've stepped out of the loop. You're finally living, not listing. Number 3, revisiting past mistakes in your head. It starts quietly. A random memory surfaces while you're brushing your teeth or trying to sleep. That one thing you said years ago, that decision you wish you'd made differently. You replay it once, then twice, then again, dissecting every angle like a detective desperate for evidence that time itself got it wrong. But the scene never changes. The words never come out differently. You're just rehearsing regret, an endless audition for a play that closed long ago. You call it reflection, but it's really self-punishment disguised as wisdom. There's a difference between learning from the past and living in it. Reflection has an ending. Obsession doesn't. You think if you replay it enough, you'll find the exact moment everything broke, the fork in the road where life could have been better. But what you're actually seeking is permission to forgive yourself. And forgiveness doesn't live in memory, it lives in the present. Neuroscience shows that when we recall a painful memory, the brain reactivates it as if it's happening again. Same emotions, same physiological stress. Every mental replay reinforces the neural pathway of guilt, carving it deeper like a groove in vinyl. And each time, the past feels a little more alive, while the present fades further away. The truth is brutal, but freeing. Closure is not found by rewinding, it's found by releasing, by accepting that the version of you who made that mistake was doing the best they could with what they knew. You don't owe your past a retrial, you owe it a pardon. Try this. The next time that memory shows up, don't fight it. Don't analyze it. Just say, I remember. Then breathe and return. Because obsession with the past is not love for truth. It's fear of impermanence. And when you stop treating your mistakes like ghosts to be exorcised, you'll see them for what they were. Teachers that already did their job. The past isn't asking to be fixed. It's asking to be left alone. Number 2, over-monitoring likes and comments online. You post something, a photo, a thought, a piece of your soul, and wait. At first, it's casual. Then minutes feel like hours. You refresh, again and again. Each notification lights up your screen like a slot machine. Each silence cuts like rejection. You start measuring worth in numbers. Hearts, thumbs, shares. But this isn't validation anymore. It's obsession disguised as relevance. What began as a tool for connection becomes a mirror that only reflects applause. You no longer ask, do I like this? But do they? Every reaction becomes proof that you exist. Every quiet moment online feels like disappearance. And so, the checking begins. A ritual of reassurance. One like, one breath of relief. No like, one sting of doubt. Your emotions start syncing with the rhythm of a feed designed to keep you hooked. Social psychologists call this variable reinforcement, the same psychological mechanism that keeps gamblers glued to slot machines. Unpredictable rewards that trigger dopamine spikes. The brain starts craving not the approval, but the possibility of it. You refresh not for joy, but for hope. And hope, repeated too often, turns into dependency. Soon, you're not expressing anymore. You're performing. Every caption becomes strategy. Every photo, an audition for belonging. The algorithm becomes your unseen critic, and you, its willing actor. Yet the cruelest irony is that the more attention you chase, the less connection you feel. Real intimacy can't survive where metrics replace meaning. Break the loop once. Post and walk away. Let silence sit where feedback used to be. Because true validation doesn't come from being seen. It comes from being unshaken when you're not. When you can exist without applause, you reclaim what the internet quietly stole. Your autonomy of emotion. The algorithm doesn't love you. It studies you. And the moment you stop performing for it, you stop being its product and start being yourself again. Beautifully unseen, blissfully unmonitored, finally real. Number 1, talking about the same topic. Every day, you tell yourself it's just passion, that you're deeply interested, that people just don't understand how important this thing is. But slowly, the topic starts replacing your identity. Every conversation loops back to it. Your job, your ex, your idea, your theory, your pain. The world becomes a set of microphones waiting for you to repeat the same monologue. Slightly edited each time. You're not discussing anymore. You're orbiting. And what you orbit defines what you can't let go of. Obsession in speech is obsession in thought made audible. Every repetition is an attempt to resolve something your mind hasn't digested. Maybe it's guilt, maybe validation, maybe fear. But instead of healing, you rehearse. Talking becomes a substitute for closure. You keep saying it because you're hoping one day it'll sound different, lighter, finished. But it never does. The more you speak it, the deeper the groove becomes. Cognitive scientists call this verbal rumination. The brain replays the same mental content through speech to simulate control. But the act of repeating strengthens the emotional weight instead of dissolving it. You carve the memory sharper with every retelling. Listeners start tuning out, and you start feeling misunderstood, fueling another round of repetition to explain yourself again and again. The deeper truth? We repeat what we don't accept. You talk about it every day because part of you still believes the story isn't over, that maybe if you phrase it differently, the outcome will change. But stories don't rewrite themselves through words. They heal through silence. Try an experiment. Go one day without mentioning it. Notice how uncomfortable the gap feels. That silence isn't emptiness. It's detox. It's your brain learning that the story can exist without you narrating it into exhaustion. Obsession ends not when you run out of things to say, but when you finally allow yourself to stop saying them. Because peace doesn't sound like another conversation. It sounds like the moment you realize you no longer need to explain your pain to feel understood.